All righty, that sounds great. Good evening, everyone. It's 6:01 p.m., and I'll go ahead and call the Missoula City Council meeting to order. Welcome to all City Council members and members of the public. It is May 11th, 2026. Before we start with our agenda, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. All right, Ms. Trimble, roll call, please.
All right, good evening. Beginning with Anderson. Present. Becerra.
Present.
Campbell.
Here.
Further limited the voting rights.
Krask.
Present.
Jones. Absent. Jordan.
Present.
McCoy.
Here.
Nelson.
Present.
Nugent.
Present.
Taunton.
Present.
Savage.
Present.
And Cheryl.
Present.
We do have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. We do have minutes from April 27th, 2026. If any council members have any questions or changes, proposed changes for those minutes, please go ahead and raise your hand. Right. Not seeing any, then those minutes remain as submitted. Thank you. Next, we'll move to the committee schedule for this coming Wednesday, May 13th, 2026. Ms. Trimble, do we have any changes or updates for the posted committee schedule?
No changes. It'll be a pretty full day. We'll begin at 9:30 with the climate conservation and parks, and then we'll end around 2:45.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. All that committee information can be found on the City of Missoula's City Council video, agenda, and minutes web page. Next, we'll move on to special presentations and proclamations. And before we get started with that, I'll mention that we do have a couple public hearings this evening. So we have that, and we also have a committee discussion. Before we get started with all of that business, we'll start with proclamations. We don't have any neighborhood council updates this evening. So our first proclamation is proclaiming Mental Health Awareness Month. Excuse me. Good to go? All right, the lead up to that proclamation was something. Thank you. Whereas since 1949, the month of May has been recognized nationally as Mental Health Awareness Month. And whereas mental health is an essential component of overall health and wellness, and whereas untreated mental illness affects significant numbers of individuals and families in Missoula and is linked to issues such as poverty, houselessness, and substance use disorders, and whereas stigma and negative stereotypes often deter people from seeking treatment and from obtaining employment or housing, and whereas community education and informed discussion can reduce stigma, promote mental health, and lead to more effective treatment of mental illness. Now, therefore, I, Andrea Davis, Mayor of the City of Missoula in the state of Montana, hereby recognize the month of May 2026 as Mental Health Awareness Month. And we do not have anybody here that wishes to speak to that tonight. So next we'll move on to our proclamation. Councilor Jordan?
Sorry, I wanted to make a comment to
Sure.
that proclamation, if that's all right.
Sure, you bet.
Okay. Yes. So thank you for that. I do appreciate that we're taking a formal stance on mental health here at the city. And I just want to say something simple tonight, but it's something that I think we all know and rarely say out loud. We don't know what anyone is going through. We don't know if the person who seems angry is terrified. We don't know if the person who can't find their words is managing a psychiatric crisis. We don't know if the person who looks like they have it together is one bad day away from falling apart. We don't know if what reads as strange or threatening or difficult is actually someone using every last bit of strength they have to just show up. And yet, the moment someone behaves in a way that makes us uncomfortable, our instinct is to pull back, to judge, to label, to distance ourselves from the thing we don't understand and didn't expect. That is a human instinct, and I'm not here to shame anyone for having it, but I am here to say that we can do better than our first instinct. Mental health doesn't look like the way we were taught it looks. It doesn't always look like sadness or quiet suffering. Sometimes it looks like what frightens us. Sometimes it looks like what offends us. Sometimes it looks like the person we can cross the street to avoid, or the one we roll our eyes at, or the one we write off entirely before they finish their sentence. And here's what I know. The people carrying the heaviest loads are often the ones who have the least ability to carry them invisibly. The ones who can't mask it. They're the ones who spill out into public view in ways that make the rest of us flinch. Those are often the people who are the most unwell and the most underserved, and they deserve our patience, not our judgment. Tolerance isn't just about accepting people who are easy to accept. That's not tolerance, that's just comfort. Real tolerance is extending grace to someone whose behavior you don't understand and may never fully understand, and choosing to believe there's a human being and a story behind it before you decide what to do next. So this week, and every week after it, take a breath before you react. Assume there is something you don't know. Lead with curiosity instead of fear. We are all one diagnosis, one crisis, one devastating loss away from being the person someone else doesn't understand. So act accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Councillor Jordan. Appreciate that. And thank you to the many people in the audience I know that are support for folks that are working with folks managing various mental challenges and illnesses. Thanks for all of the work that you do every day. Appreciate that. All right. Next, move on to the next proclamation. Which is in regards to ALS Awareness Month. At the risk of mispronouncing this, we'll give it my best attempt here. Whereas amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, otherwise known as ALS, also commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease, is a progressive, fatal neurodegenerative disease in which a person's brain loses connection with their muscles, slowly reducing a person's ability to walk, talk, eat, and breathe. And whereas, on average, patients diagnosed with ALS survive only 2 to 5 years from the time of diagnosis, and whereas securing access to new therapies, durable medical equipment, and communication technologies is of vital importance to people living with ALS, and whereas clinical trials play a pivotal role in evaluating new treatments, enhancing quality of life, and fostering assistive technologies for those living with ALS. And whereas spreading awareness of this neurodegenerative disease provides an opportunity to increase public awareness of the dire circumstances of people living with ALS, acknowledge the terrible impact this disease has on those individuals, their families and caregivers, and supports research to find a cure and eradicate this devastating disease. Now, therefore, I, Andrea Davis, Mayor of the City of Missoula in the state of Montana, hereby recognize the month of May 2026 as Amyotrophic Lateral Sclerosis, ALS Awareness Month. Appreciate that. A dear friend of mine manages ALS, and it is really something pretty devastating. And we can bring some awareness to it. All right. With that, that wraps up agenda item number 4, which is special presentations and proclamations. So next we'll move on to public comment for items that are not on the agenda. The first period of public comment on items not on the agenda is limited to 20 minutes total, up to 3 minutes allotted per speaker. Each person may speak once per meeting concerning items that are not on the agenda. In-person comments take precedence. Sign-up is required and follows a first come, first served basis. The second period of public comment on items not on the agenda will follow immediately after the conclusion of all regular business and continue until all comments have been taken. So with that, we'll go ahead and start our public comment for items not on the agenda. I do have a few people signed up here, and the first is Chester S. Chester, even though I said your name, please say your name into the microphone when you come up. Your first and last name for the record, please. Come on up. And we'll go ahead and I'll on the microphone for you. And I'll time you up here for 3 minutes. There is a clock that will show you when you're getting to 30 seconds and then when you're 3 minutes, it's done. All righty. Go right ahead.
And it Chester sites, and you already know of that, I hope. Unless you were talking about pronunciation, in which case I have no idea. Anyway, it's just some City of Missoula post about somebody somewhere walking their dog, and I don't really know if the person actually did what the law says and picked up after the dog. Also, because I need to because I'm kind of wondering if we have spending the tax dollars we give you wisely or not. I have no idea, mind you. I'd be going with no, but who knows. That's going to be in my public comment, and bye.
Much, Chester. Coming down to make comment. All right. Next person up, Suzette Dussault.
Evening, and thank you for hearing us out. We read through, or I've read through the MRA document regarding Midtown Commons, or whatever we're calling this now. That's 13 acres that will be developed for profit housing, for market rate housing. And again, I'm stunned by the city in allocating our few precious resources for market rate when we have a critical need for housing for our workers and our community. So I ask you to go back to the drawing board and to look at what the possibilities are that you could imagine that will provide worker housing. And I'm not talking worker housing that is like warehouse housing. I'm thinking for worker housing that is humane, that is not 8 to 10-story buildings, that is not grouped together on a small lot where you have no sense of community, no sense of gardening, no sense of who we are as Missoula. So I ask you to please go back and at this parcel, reconfigure it. There is a beautiful plan developed quite a while ago. It was the first plan. It was developed by a local architectural firm. Go back, look at it. It preserves the beloved natural area, the ditch, which actually also flows past my house. It flows all the way from the Bitterroot River. You forget this. It's isolated item. It flows all the way to past the university, or at least to Higgins Avenue where it meets the Clark Fork. So please consider this site. We can, with good design, which I know we have in our community because we have a local architectural firm that did this. I suggest that you can you imagine what $2 million, $5 million would be if we took that cost out of the land underneath our homes? What would that make that townhouse or that small condo or that small apartment or even a little grove of tiny homes? How much more affordable that would be if we even raised that whole notion of land underneath these homes. So please go back to the drawing board and use our local developers. Missoula is the beloved community you've all come to because it was developed by people who understood and were from this community. We do not need people from Arizona. We do not need people from God knows where to tell us how to be as a community. We know how to do that. Thank you.
Right, next up for public comment is Carrie Schreiber.
Hello, Carrie Schreiber from Ward 4 and Southgate Triangle Neighborhood Council, as well as this Midtown Commons development. This map that Suzette was showing us is what brought this was the developer's proposal a year ago that led to the exclusivity agreement. And what has happened, I don't know if you all have had a chance to read the 82 papers of what came out on Wednesday for you to vote on Monday. It's a 12-day period to understand the developer's new plan and then choose to sell the land. As you all know, I've been following this closely since we started talking about buying the land. The initial news was saying, we're going to build a new neighborhood in Southgate Triangle. And I called MRA the next day and said, we are already a neighborhood and we're really dependent on that space. Please, when you make a park, do something that will serve the whole neighborhood. And we've had endless conversations about this in the time since. So we went from this plan that the developer brought that has some great key aspects. There's a beautiful waterway, greenway for the bike park into this park. A lot of green space through here. But the final one that you all will be voting for is here. And they're still using the language. There's a lot less green here. They're still using the language of a nice greenway from the bike path. But when I look at it, it looks like the waterway is culverted and the trail is through the parking lot of a 4-story condo building. So that's a little bit confusing to me why that is supposed to be inviting for the 1,000 people that live on the other side of the tracks to access that park. It really makes it look like it's more of a private park. That proposal that they brought, the initial one, also shows keeping the waterway through that area of the grove with the cottonwoods that we talk about all the time. Their proposal showed doing that. Their proposal showed keeping the waterway through the lowlands. This is really distracting. I don't know if you can add more time on me from having this experience of this ringing in my ear the whole time. We went to Farmers Market. We went to First Friday. We have 160 signatures of Missoulians that want to have a town hall and understand this more. A lot of people think that this is going to be attainable or affordable housing or workforce housing, and it's not. These are all the ones we have in paper. That's 160. We've got another 500 or just under 500 online. And what we want is a conversation around these changes that go against what the public has actually been pleading for.
Schreiber. That does conclude everybody that signed up on the sign-up sheet initially for public comment for items that are not on the agenda. But we do have about 10 minutes left of this period if anybody wishes to make public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Come on up.
Hi, my name's Katie Thompson, and I also wanted to talk about the Midtown Commons. I'm hoping that the council will give extended periods since it's not the original plan that was presented. I do have concerns about affordability. When I look at the loft apartments that this developer built, a 1-bedroom is $1,800. It goes up to $2,750 for a 3-bedroom. That means that for $1,800, you need to make $6,000 a month if you're going by the 30% income basis. For $2,750, you need to make $8,250 a month. And I think we know Missoula salaries don't typically cater to those kind of numbers. So I do have major concerns about this being market rate. And the other thing is accessibility. You know, seniors, handicap, you mentioned a friend that has, I believe you said ALS. I'm a nurse. You know, I just think we're really not doing justice to our vulnerable population. And we're using a lot of tax funds for this development. And I know you've tried to say that we can't ask for too much in something, or it hasn't worked with other developments, but I feel like we're just kind of handing this over. And we're funding, I believe it said 50% of the infrastructure. So I do have concerns about the amount of dollars and how much of a benefit? If you're talking rich people coming into Missoula, then yeah. If you're talking about people who are working, fast food and college kids, I just worry about the numbers because these are investors that are coming with this developer. These are numbers they're looking at. Green space, we have begged you guys, and I do really appreciate some of you city council members have come to look at the land, which I think it always helps that you can look at what you're voting on. And it would be so nice if you do start listening to the people that live in the neighborhood, because we know traffic, we know the specifics of the area and the needs. If this development is 300 units, let's multiply that times 3. Or let's go conservative and say 2 cars. That's 600 cars, you guys. There's just a lot that needs to be considered. Also, now you're selling another portion of land with this. It's just, this document, I just don't think it's fair to the public when this is not the original proposal. This is completely different. If you look in site plan A, they actually kept the ditch the way that it was without, charging to move it. So thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Thompson. Anybody else for public comment on items that are not on the agenda? Come on up.
My name's Shauna Yellow Kidney. I live in Ward 1. I just want to let you know and put my face to what's going on. Our quality of life is being reduced by the high occupancy housing that is being put up right across the street from where we live. This building that's going up right now doesn't even have all the cars that are going to be there once the residents move in, all the people. My children are experiencing a reduced quality of life because of the growth. I would like you to please consider the little people when approving these high-density housing projects, particularly in Ward 1, but all over. It is affecting us in ways that I don't think any of you are quite aware. I also would like to request a crosswalk to be built or painted between Walnut and 5th Street so that my kids can safely and legally cross the street there when they walk home from school. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for coming down and making comment this evening. And I will just let you know that there's an opportunity on the How Do I form on the city's website that actually allows you to make requests such as you've made. So there's one for street improvements and traffic concerns, and that's where you would direct your request, and I'll take a look at that. Thank you very much. All right, folks, we have a few more minutes. If anybody's interested in making public comment on items that are not on the agenda, Steve, come on up.
Hi, thanks. Steve MacArthur. And I was concerned about the issue that's before you because of the complexity, especially with...
Is there an issue? Hold on one second.
Oh,
Yeah, you can pull it up too, just so we can hear you a little bit better.
All right.
Sorry about that. Thanks.
Hi, Steve MacArthur. My concern as I became aware of the Midtown development was that I felt like, one, there needed to be more public awareness of what was going on so there could be comment to that. Those of us who are making good salaries, that's not a problem, but I think it is the people who are the working class of Missoula who are probably going to have the most difficulty being able to stay in Missoula and support the wonderful kind of downtown services that are being provided if we don't seriously look at the values that you have agreed to in terms of the decisions that are being made. Because I believe that one of the key priorities was the affordability of housing, and this development doesn't seem to meet that standard. So I'd ask you to just at least try to go back to the drawing board and say, what can we do to moderate that in a way? I know it's very difficult to get projects approved, especially if they don't pencil out, but the value around affordable housing in this community is critical to the success of Missoula in the future. And if we don't make decisions that are very hard now, I feel like it's going to be impossible in the future. We'll be another Boulder, Colorado, and I hope that doesn't happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments this evening, Steve. All right, we have time for one more public comment this evening.
Hi, my name is Mary Giuliani, and I am a mental health therapist, so I really appreciate tonight's proclamation. I work with a lot of first responders, firefighters, ER nurses, and actually a lot of what causes them distress is not being able to afford living in Missoula, not being able to afford housing in Missoula. So I just want to thank you for the proclamation. And I also want to recognize Teachers Week, which was last week, and Nurses Week, which I believe ends tomorrow. Truly, our society would crumble without these people that serve our public. So huge gratitude towards them. And this ties into this Midtown Commons project because at the MRE meeting on Friday, I heard a lot of confusion. Again, I made this comment on Friday, but about what type of housing will be provided. I heard Grant Keir talk about that we're going to have affordable housing for Missoula's workers. You said it was going to be attainable. Two MRA board members thought that there was going to include workforce housing. We really had to make clear, no, it wasn't. And then lastly, Chris Kemmerly, the developer, said it's going to be market rate. So there's a bunch of different messages that we're receiving. 7 years ago, Mayor Davis, when you were the executive director of Homeward, you said, quote, a person, and this is in 2019, again, quote, a person or a family would need an income of around $100,000 a year to afford a median priced home in Missoula. So that was 7 years ago. We all know what has happened to the housing market since then. Currently, an average teacher's yearly salary in Missoula is $46,000 a year, and an average nurse's salary is $62,000 a year. So this housing is not going to be affordable to the backbone of what keeps Missoula going, our firefighters, our teachers, our nurses. So again, sort of reiterating this call for a town hall. We actually got the idea from you, our very first city council meeting we came to. We asked questions about this project. You said this isn't a town hall. It's not a back and forth. You can't ask questions and we can't respond. So thank you for letting us know the correct path to take in order to get a public, transparent conversation about this. And we're looking forward to hearing back from you about that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening. All right, folks, that does wrap up our public comment for items that are not on the agenda. There is another section for this a little bit later down the agenda. All right, next we'll move on to our public hearings. Our first public hearing this evening is 6.1, the UDC Developer Street Mitigation Payment Fee. I'll just say before we get started that state law and city council rules set guidelines for inviting community comment in a formal way on certain issues. Following a staff report on each item, the city council and the mayor invite community comment. City council holds a public hearing on the item. A member of council makes a motion and a vote is taken. The public hearing and vote take place on the same night unless there is a reason to hold the vote over to a later meeting date. So with that, I've got Ben Carson and Morgan Valiant, staff members who are here and ready to present on this item. Hello, Morgan. Come on up.
Hello, good evening. It's good to see you all tonight. I'm Morgan Valiant. I work for City Parks and Rec. I'm the Associate Director of the Ecosystem Services Division, which houses our Conservation Lands Management Program and Urban Forestry Program. Unfortunately, Ben can't join us. He's got a herniated disc, and so he is down for the count. And so I chatted with him before this, so I should be able to answer any questions that come up. But to give you a quick background on what we're requesting today. I'm here to talk about trees and more specifically about trees, tree planting and new development. We all know that trees are important. They increase our quality of life, livability of our neighborhoods, cools our urban environment. makes our asphalt last longer, reduces cooling costs on adjacent homes. We have robust goals as a community to continue to expand our urban forest, to take care of it, and a lot of that has to do with replanting. A lot of the new trees that we get within our community do come through development or redevelopment or of sites. Recently, when the city passed their new Unified Development Code, a new option was put out for developers for tree planting. There were always two options that were available. One is the developer plants trees as per their landscape plan and does that as part of their development, and they get their certificate of occupancies as they complete their landscape and boulevard improvements. There was also an option for the urban forester to allow in certain cases where tree planting can't be done, cash in lieu mitigation payments. We rarely do that. The third option, and should have covered this one first because it's actually option one in the UDC, but the new option allows the city or the developer to actually pay the city's urban forestry program to add that tree planting site to their annual planting list, and then the city would plant the tree. Tonight, we're talking about setting a fee for that new option. The recommended fee that we have in front of you today is $1,025. This covers the costs for us to add the tree to our tree order that tree from a nursery, get that tree, hold it until it's time to plant, which is a really critical thing. Planting trees in boulevards is really tough. It's a harsh environment, and a lot of folks, when they do a development, if you finish your development in July and you've got to get that tree in the ground, you'd plant it in July, which is not normally a good time to plant a tree in our climate. So we'll hold that tree, we'll put it in either the fall or the spring in those wet shoulder seasons. We would cover fencing, a water bladder for that tree. We would offer water to that tree for the hot summer months for once a week for the 2 to 3 months, about 2.5 months of the summer. We do a formative prune on that tree after 2 years, and if the tree dies, we would accept the warranty and we would replace that tree. In general, not in general, actually, this is the exact same fee that we currently charge, and I hesitate to call it charge because it's really a city partnership with our colleagues over at the Missoula Redevelopment Agency and Public Works and Mobility. We have already been doing this for their sidewalk improvement projects where they will pay us $1,025. We will add it to our planting list. We will provide that 2 years of care, make sure that that tree is successful. And so this is not something new internal to the city, but this is a new option we're offering developers. Besides ensuring that these trees are going to survive, it also allows us to really start that critical relationship and partnership building with the adjacent resident. One of the things unique about our community is that tree in front of your house is city property, but we manage it in partnership with that homeowner. And so we can get in there with educational material, we can build that relationship, and when we are pulling our water bladder and stopping those 2 years of watering, they have all the tools they need to take over care for that tree to make sure it's successful and we continue to expand our urban forest. Other benefits of this is it definitely expedites the developer's ability to complete their project. We're not having to issue temporary CFOs until that tree is, or certificate of occupancies until that tree is planted. They're able to pretty easily move from their development to issuing or selecting this option, having us take over tree planting. We're able to close out that project and have folks move in. In general, I think the other option or another consideration to really think about is this is not a requirement. No developer has to select this option. They can do it the way they've always done it and the way we've had it in our code for decades. And so it is a bonus that folks could enter into if they so desire. And we do have a fair amount of support from a lot of folks that are doing developments around town for this fee. So with that, I don't know if I should open it up to questions or sit down and let public comment go.
Thanks, Morgan. You can go ahead and take a seat, although the next item will be questions from council.
Okay.
So you're welcome to stay there. You're welcome to sit down, but Counselor Nugent says, stay there. Here's some questions. So come on up. Questions from council. Counselor Nugent.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. First of all, I want to thank Parks for taking this step. I actually think this is a great tool. And as you mentioned, people don't have to do it. Developers can still plant their own trees and take care of this the way they always have been. But for folks who've said this is a burden, I actually think this is a great program. One question I just maybe want the public to better understand. So if a developer finishes a house in a window that you kind of classified as the bad planting time, so winter, let's just say, no planting time, I guess.
Yeah.
Can the developer get like a temporary certificate of occupancy until appropriate planting season?
Yes, and that is exactly what happens. We'll issue a temporary C of O, and they'll have to wait until nurseries release trees and the ground freezes. So sometimes you're coming back 6 months later to plant that tree, and so there's an inconvenience factor, especially in winter months.
Follow up?
Please.
So the temporary C of O allows people to move into the house and start living in the house, and then they come back and finalize it later.
Yes.
All right, I appreciate that, because one of the public comments that a couple of us received was a concern that this was going to be the city's way of forcing people to use this program and not granting those. And I assured them that's not the case, but I wanted you to walk through that, so I appreciate it.
Yes, 100%.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your questions. Appreciate that. Any other council questions? Counselor Melson, please.
Thanks, Mayor Davis. Thanks, Morgan. This is an awesome program. I'm very supportive. I am concerned about urban forestry's capacity. Have you ground tested or modeled, sort of stress tested, like what the volume of opt-ins now that this program could potentially be propped up would look like? And could urban forestry respond to that given the capacity that they have?
Yeah, right now we feel like we have the capacity. One of the things about this fee that allows us to do is we actually hire seasonals, and so temporary intermittent seasonals that would come in to drive our water truck to do this watering. And we actually have 2 water trucks right now, a larger one and a smaller one, and so we feel that we can absorb a lot of this planting. We do not know what the upper limit is, though, and so we could run into a bit of a bottleneck, and the hope is as this fee grows and we're able to find cost savings, we're able to actually build towards that. The big pinch I see is actually equipment related in the future. As far as the fee itself, though, it does cover that seasonal staff time, and so the labor shouldn't really come into play with these.
Awesome. Thanks.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Any additional questions? Counselor Krask.
Thank you. I'm just curious if you have this, you might not have this, but any idea of kind of the success rate of trees being followed for a couple years of their lifespan after they're first planted and taken care of versus trees that are maybe put in the heat of July and becoming the sole homeowner responsibility or property owner responsibility at that point?
We see, I don't have hard numbers. We see a lot of tree failure oftentimes, especially in large developments where you have an entire neighborhood where the developer actually has to hold warranty periods on that. There can be 30+% tree loss that has to be replaced. And so on smaller developments where it's just a lot here or there, we don't really know. We have tracked our own internal planting. Urban Forestry does about 100 to 150 trees a year. We do it at the right time of year, but we didn't used to always provide deer browse and watering. We used to just plant and then hope that the adjacent homeowner would take care of it. We hired a position, this body actually funded this position 3 years ago to supply that 2 years of maintenance. And we didn't have good numbers before, but we were probably losing upwards of 30+%. We lost 2% now. And so they've all been not for lack of watering or care. It's been weird things like a car hits it or something.
That's great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any additional council questions? No? All right. All right, not seeing any, then we'll go ahead and hear the motion. Chair Cheryl.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Morgan.
Yeah, thanks. I recommend that we adopt a resolution for a fee of $1,025 per tree, right-of-way improvement, street tree mitigation option 1 detailed in Article 6.2.01-A 5 of the City of Missoula Unified Development Code.
Thank you very much. So the motion's on the floor. This is a public hearing, and the public hearing is open. We now will move to public comment for this agenda item. So if there's any public comment for this agenda item. I'm not seeing any in the room. We'll go to online. Amy Sillenberg, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Great, thank you. Yes, Amy Sillenberg, I am the Executive Director at Climate Smart Missoula. And I think as folks on council know, one of our key programs is the Trees for Missoula program. So getting to this resolution is exciting. We work a lot, not just with urban forestry, but with others trying to plant and grow and take care of trees. And so it's really exciting that there will be the funds to not just plant the trees, but as Morgan described, care for them. It really will result in a healthier, longer lasting urban forest. And we know all the benefits from shade to cooling to health. And also really want to just point out one of Morgan's final points there, the partnerships that this will develop. A lot of the work that we're trying to do along with urban forestry and others is to really help folks that live in these homes where they have trees understand the benefits and be ambassadors of their own trees. So anyway, this is great, and I really appreciate the careful consideration around. I think it will be very successful. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening, Amy. Appreciate that. Lucas Moody, your hand is raised. Go right ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, this is Lucas Moody. So I was just wondering if there are specific requirements about the types of trees that are seen as the city would be like taking on the burden of responsibility for this. If there's like certain types of trees that would be like prohibited or the like, just because I know that various trees are very climate restrictive. And or even like you get junipers and we have like those are like candy to the local deer population. So these are basically trees that aren't native to our ecosystem that would have a much lower survival rate. And I'm wondering if there's just like any conditions regarding that.
Thank you for your comments this evening, Lucas. Any additional public comment? All right. I'm not seeing any then. That wraps up the public comment and the public hearing for this agenda item. We'll bring it back to City Council comments or questions. Any council comments or questions? Councilor Nugent.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. I would just invite Morgan to answer that last public comment question about just what types of trees, because I know the city does pay attention to that. So might as well get that information out there.
Yeah, we do. Thank you very much. And I could go on and on. I'll keep it short and sweet. We do have a list of prohibited trees that we know that don't do well here or are invasive in our natural areas. We also have a long list of trees in different size class. You know, one thing that we talk about is right tree, right place. And so we have a long list that folks can choose from, but all the tree planting that would be done in this case would be part of an approved development plan. And so that landscape plan would go through our development review process. They'd be reviewed by our urban forester and our urban forestry team, and we'd work with that developer to make sure we're choosing the right trees for the area. So there is a significant amount of thought that goes into this.
Great. Thank you. And any other questions or comments from council members? All right. Not seeing any. Then Claire, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
All right. Voting on to adopt a resolution for a fee of $1,025 per tree for right-of-way improvements, street tree mitigation option 1 detailed in the new UDC. Beginning with Anderson.
Yes.
Becerra. Campbell.
Yes.
Krask.
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Coy,
Aye.
Melson,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Ponton,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
and Cheryl.
Yes.
That item passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Morgan, thank you for your presentation and you and your team's work on this effort. Thank you. All right. Our next public hearing is item 6.2, which is funding recommendations for the United Application Program Year 2026. We have 3 of our housing program staff associated with this agenda item. Not sure who is going to present, Kendra Lissam, Lisa Bauer, or Colleen Kane. Whichever of you are ready, please go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. Let me get my screen to share. Okay, holler if you can't see that. Okay. All right, so thank you. I'm Kendra Lysam, and I'm joined by Colleen Kane and Lisa Bauer, and we're grants administrators in the Community Development Division of CPDI. And each spring, we come before council to present our funding recommendations for the upcoming year, which is fiscal year 2027, or our HUD year 2026. You'll hear us refer to both the program and the fiscal years, but we're talking about the same time period, which is June 1st through June 30th. So we're here to present our funding recommendations for 4 separate sources of local and federal funding. And we'll start by giving a brief overview of the sources, followed by the process that we do to review the projects that come in, and finally our project recommendations. So to begin with, here's an overview of the funds that we'll be discussing today. We have the local affordable housing trust funds, which can be used for a variety of housing related activities to benefit those with incomes up to 120% AMI. And this year, the trust fund was able to bring approximately $309,000. The Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, and Home Investment Partnerships Program, or HOME funds, are made available to the City of Missoula on an annual basis from the federal government through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Home and CDBG allocations differ from year to year, but on average, we receive about a total of about $800,000 between the two. And then finally, in late 2021, we received a one-time allocation of $1.3 million in federal home ARP, or American Rescue Plan funds from the COVID era. And these funds can be used to help reduce homelessness and increase housing stability. And then collectively, we call these funds our community development funds, and each fund can be used for different activities, things like acquisition, construction, and rehabbing affordable housing, and some services as well for low and moderate income Missoulians. So as I mentioned, our funds benefit households of certain incomes, and income limits are often referred to in terms of area median income, or AMI. And I just wanted to pause real quick to just explain what that is, because we'll bring it up a couple times. If you line up every household in a region from the one making the least to the one making the most, the household in the middle would be the median household, and therefore the median household income is the middle household in that region. So for an example, a family at 80% AMI might be a household with 2 working parents, where one is a teacher and another is an administrative assistant. And so we use AMI to determine the eligibility for each of these funds. Oh, and here's what our AMI is for 2025 for a family of 4.
This slide shows the breakdown of funding requests we received and the amounts that we have available in each funding source. We have 2 methods for matching our funds with projects that address identified community needs. The primary way is through a formal application and scoring process. This year, the scoring committee reviewed applications for the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund and HUD CDBG funds. The scoring committee included 4 community development staff, a city permit coordinator, 2 city council members, and a representative from the Affordable Housing Resident Oversight Committee. We reviewed 13 applications and scored each based on a rubric that includes things like project design, outcomes, and financial feasibility. Some of our funding, like home and home ARP, just don't mix well with our competitive round because of the narrow focus and the complex compliance requirements that come with these grants. So we use community identified needs to match this funding with appropriate projects. These needs are identified both in our funding allocation plans required by HUD and through various reports like our community needs assessment, our needs and gap surveys, housing partnership meetings, housing landscapes assessment reports, point in time counts, and things like that. We're proposing to fund 2 projects this year with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The first project was the top scoring project in our recent funding application round. $200,000 is recommended to support United Way's Housing Solutions Fund, which provides a flexible source of financial assistance in order to prevent instances of houselessness. This project will benefit 425 low-income households. The next highest scoring project was Homeward's Creekside Apartments Rehabilitation Project. Additional funding here will address unanticipated and critical rehab needs they've encountered that are above and beyond the initial estimates. The rehabilitation is benefiting 161 low-income households. For one of our most challenging funding sources, we recommend continued home ARP funding for the Human Resource Council's Houseless Prevention Project and Partnership Health Center's Navigating to Stability Project. The Houseless Prevention Project will provide critical rent and deposit assistance, working to prevent houselessness for 80 very low-income households. So this is 30% AMI or below. The Navigating to Stability Project will support the Watershed Navigation Center's ability to provide mental health treatment and housing counseling services to 250 individuals who are houseless or at risk of houselessness.
And then for our CDBG projects this year, we're proposing to fund 6. Homeward's Orchard Gardens is a 35-unit affordable housing project, and it'll receive $275,000 to address critical rehabilitation needs. And then Accessible Space will receive funds to install 2 new energy-efficient boilers at the Bruce Blattner Apartments. The Regional Access Mobility Program, or RAMP, will receive funds to continue to install ADA-compliant wheelchair ramps for low-income households. And HRC's homeowner rehabilitation project will continue to be funded to address critical rehab needs for Missoula's low-income homeowners. And then in our surveys and reports, childcare was repeatedly cited as a pressing community need. So we've partnered with the Parks and Rec Department to fund 2 after-school programs. One will provide childcare to complement MCPS's 6-week summer jumpstart program, while the other will provide childcare before and after kindergarten assessments. Both programs will aim to give low and moderate income families the flexibility and childcare support that they need.
And then for our home funds this year, we're proposing to allocate a little over $16,000 to support the operating expenses of a local community housing development organization. This is a standard allocation that HUD allows us to do each year with up to 5% of our allocation from HUD. We have 2 community housing development organizations in Missoula, Homeward and Front Step Community Land Trust, and this year we're proposing to allocate the funding to Front Step. The remainder of our home funding for this program year, we're going to hold on to for the moment in anticipation of additional housing needs that may come up during the program year, and in which case we'll come back and present those projects at that time. I also wanted to provide a quick update on our PY25 HUD action plan. We presented to Council in January of this year about a new project with Front Step Community Land Trust to acquire a property on East Spruce and Alder Street. Unfortunately, that project was unable to move forward, so we've pivoted with Front Step to support a different acquisition. This property is on South 13th Street, and Front Step, in partnership with Habitat for Humanity, will build 2 3-bedroom homes for low-income home buyers that will be placed into a community land trust. And then here's a summary of all the PY26 projects that we've just discussed. Altogether, these projects total a little over $1.5 million in funding commitments. In addition, each awardee is asked to bring at least 25% matching funds to the project, and that's non-federal funds that they have to propose. That's an estimated total of $386,000 in non-federal leverage that's being brought to the projects. And then when you take all of our funds together and add up all the total beneficiaries across the projects, you can see that all 4 funding sources provide an incredible benefit to and are greatly needed in our community.
And we'd like to encourage everyone to take a look at our CDBG and Home Annual Action Plan, where you can read about our federal projects that will be supported this year. And then we really do encourage you to reach out and let us know with questions, comments, anything. You can do so by going to engagemissoula.com, or you can scan the QR code. And we'll accept public comments through this Friday, May 15th. And you can also comment by reaching out to any of us here. You can call us or you can email us. We're always happy to help. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much for your presentation and for your work in this important space, allocating $1.5 million to both bricks and mortar affordable housing, existing affordable housing that needs some rehab, and then some services that help people access their home more easily is incredibly important. Thank you. With that, I'd like to ask if there are any questions from council. I'm not seeing any questions. All right, then what we'll do, oh, yes, Councilor Becerra, please. And Councilor, we're barely able to hear you this evening, so if you can just make sure that you speak close to your microphone, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, but very lightly.
I'll just email my question because I don't think I can yell.
We're hearing you better now if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
I was just wondering if the 13th Street project that we had to pivot to in order to allocate funds, if it went through a similar rubric review process as all the other projects that normally go through the unified grant application process.
Excellent. Thank you for your question, Councilor. We heard that loud and clear. All right, which staff member would like to hear that?
I'm happy to take that one, and thank you for that question. Yes, it did. We have a pretty rigorous process of determining if projects are eligible for home funding because of how complex it is. And so the same criteria that we used for the East Alder Street, Spruce Street project, we applied in conversation with both Front Step Community Land Trust and Habitat for Humanity to make sure that it still met those criteria. And so they provided us all the same documentation. They'll be holding public comment in the neighborhood with the community to talk about the project and all of the standard things that are required in order to apply for home funds.
Excellent. Great question. Thank you so much for providing that answer. Any additional questions from council? All right. Not seeing any other additional questions, then I'll go ahead and ask for a motion. I believe that's Councilor Nugent in place of Chair Jones. Is that right? In that case, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. I move City Council adopt a resolution granting approval of the City of Missoula Unified Application Round Year 2026, awarding Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Home Investment Partnership Program, Home ARP, and Community Development Block Grant funds to certain organizations, directing staff to negotiate contracts and agreements, and authorizing the mayor to sign the contracts and agreements with said organizations.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The main motion's on the floor. This opens the public hearing, and it's time for public comment for this agenda item. If anybody has a public comment for this agenda item, please come up now.
Council. My name is Julie Pavlish. I am the Operations and Program Director for Homeward. And I just wanted to take a moment tonight to thank the city staff firstly, but the council committee and all of you on the council for your thoughtful consideration of limited resources and great need in our community for these grouped funds together. So we are incredibly appreciative of that consideration and the continued funding for the various projects that we have put forward over the years and this year particularly. So I'm going to urge you to adopt the resolution that's before you this evening. It's going to continue to help us maintain the affordability and health and safety of over 196 homes in our community in the coming year. So thank you all tonight, and I appreciate your time.
Excellent, Ms. Pavlich, thank you, and thank you for your great work. All right, Eric, come on up.
Good evening, Mayor Davis, Council. Thank you very much. My name is Eric Legvold, L-E-G, V as in Victor, O-L-D. I'm the Director of Impact at United Way of Missoula County. I'll make this brief. We respectfully urge the Council to approve the $200,000 for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund allocation to replenish the Housing Solutions Fund for fiscal year 27, PY 26. In the fiscal year 26, Housing Solutions Fund served over 206 households in Missoula County, providing emergency rental assistance, move-in support, and housing reunification services, while distributing almost $300,000 through 5 funding streams, one of that being Affordable Housing Trust Fund. All of that, nearly 90% of households served were at or below 50% AMI, confirming resources are reaching the community's most need, and demand was strong that all available funds currently have been fully exhausted, resulting in a gap of roughly 2 months until hopefully resupplementing the fund. The $200,000, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund allocation, will directly resolve or restore the city's primary emergency housing stabilization tool, preventing evictions, reducing shelter entries, and connecting Missoula residents with housing before crisis becomes homelessness. We thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you for coming down tonight, Eric. Thank you and your team. Any other public comment on this agenda item? Okay, I'm not seeing any in the audience. I'll just take a quick look online here and see if anybody has their hand raised for public comment on this agenda item. Not seeing any hands raised. That does wrap up our public comment and the public hearing for item 6.2, and we'll bring it back to the City Council to see if there are any questions or comments from City Council members. Councilor Krask, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to express my gratitude to the team for the work that they've done on these grants and the allocations. I think we'd love to be able to fully fund every project, and with limited funds and resources, that isn't always possible. I hope we've been able to fund as much as we can that fits within the purview of these grants, and I think they'll certainly do really great work to address housing and affordability in our city. I'm just really grateful for these organizations receiving the money, the allocations, and everyone who supports these grants in all these different ways. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Krask and Councilor Nugent.
Thank you, Mayor Davis. I would echo what my colleague, Councilor Krask, said, and just commend all the organizations that are receiving these grants. The distance they stretch the dollars on these grants is kind of incredible, and the work that gets done in our community. So thank you in this room and those you're representing from other groups that are also part of this as well. I just really appreciate all the good work being done in Missoula.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Councilor McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wanted to echo my colleagues' comments and also just add in that I hope that our public and our constituents understand that this funding and where it goes is doing the greatest good for our community, particularly our houseless community and those who are struggling for shelter, because if they don't have access to these types of resources, then their options could become the streets or possible fines for being on the streets or jail. And it has been demonstrated through our social sciences over and over and over again that these are the pathways to getting people into permanent housing and off of the streets. So I am in full support of this.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any other council members? Alrighty, not seeing any. Then we will go to a roll call vote, please.
All right, voting to adopt a resolution granting approval of the City of Missoula Unified Application Round Year 2026, awarding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, Home Investment Partnership Program, Home ARP Program, and the Community Development Block Grant funds to certain organizations, beginning with Becerra.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Krask.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
McCoy.
Yes.
Melson.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Ponton.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
And Anderson.
Yes.
And that also passes unanimously.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, everybody, for your great work. Really appreciate coming down this evening. And again, thanks to the staff and the council members for your support and continued work. Next, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Consent agenda items were approved in city council committees to be placed on the consent agenda to save time at council meetings by voting on them as a package. The city clerk will read the list aloud, so citizens watching on MCAT will know what is on the consent agenda. We'll invite community comment on these items before we vote. So, Ms. Trimble, if you'll go ahead and share the consent agenda on screen and walk us through that, that would be great.
All right. On this evening's consent agenda, we have a motion to ratify accounts payable or claims for checks dated May 5th, 2026 in the amount of $737,768.44, and a second motion to approve accounts payable or claims for checks dated May 12th, 2026 in the amount of $1,273,091.87. Next up, we have a motion to approve a resolution establishing the Higgins Lot as an authorized farmers market and allowing it to operate between the first Saturday in May and through the second Saturday in October each year. We have a motion to appoint Jennifer Snorsky Pfeiffer as a regular member of the City Planning Commission with a term that begins immediately and expires December 31st, 2028. We have a motion to approve and direct the mayor to execute the proposed Fox Triangle Land Use and Development Requirements Agreement establishing certain mutual obligations between the city and Riverfront Triangle Partners, LLC, relative to easements, transportation, infrastructure, and development in Riverfront Triangle, and rescind the prior land use agreement between the parties. We have a motion to confirm the mayor's appointment of Kelsey McIntosh Krug to the Parking Commission for a term beginning May 1st, 2026, and expiring on April 30th, 2030. And our last item this evening is a motion to authorize the mayor to sign Amendment Number 1 to the marketing agreement with the Service Line Warranties of America to begin offering insurance plans for sewer lines at no cost to the city.
All right, very good. Thank you. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda this evening? Not seeing any. I'll go ahead and check online. Any comment online? Okay. It appears no public comment for the consent agenda this evening. Do any council members wish to abstain or separate any of the consent agenda items? All right, not seeing any. Ms. Trimble, we can take a voice vote on this consent agenda, please.
Absolutely. Voting on this evening's consent agenda, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And any opposed? And that passes unanimously.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. We do have one item for regular business located under the committee reports. This is agenda item number 10 for those that are following along. And this is item 10.1A under the Budget and Finance Committee report, 10.1.AB authorization for 3 full-time employees for the municipal court. And we have Carrie Dady that I believe is here to make the presentation. Come on up, Carrie.
Thank you, Council. Good evening. My name is Carrie Dady. I'm the court administrator. Had an opportunity to come before the Budget and Finance Council on back in April, and now here with the final vote. A quick recap, this is a request to move funds from our professional services line item in our budget to personnel. This would create 3 new full-time employees in the current municipal court budget. The purpose behind this move is to move a contracted service that we've done for years with Missoula County to an in-house service. I have had a couple conversations, great conversations with counselors in the time between the first and second presentation. And there was an ask of why, why is this coming right now? Why isn't this part of the normal fiscal year 27 budget process? And the reason why we're bringing this now is the contract that we have with the county expires on June 30th of this year. So in order to prevent a break in services and to onboard new staff while we're winding down this contract, we worked with the finance department, central services, and human resources, kind of as this is the route or the mechanism to bring this now. We began kind of conversations in December with the county on whether the contract is set to automatically terminate, but whether to consider our ask was a 6-month extension so that we could do this during the fiscal year 27 budget and wind the program down with the county running it on December 31st. That wasn't a workable option for them, just a 6-month kind of interim to get us through. And so we now stand with the contract ending June 30th. It is, as I said, we've worked with central services on locating space for these new employees, IT in terms of those startup costs. Human resources has approved these job descriptions and classed them, and then working with finance on that, the logistics of adding people at this time of the year. Recruitment for this position must begin immediately to prevent a break in service. The county program and the wonderful employees that have been handling our pretrial services have accepted new jobs. So there isn't an opportunity to extend for a month or two. They'll be winding this up and heading into new exciting projects. This action does not increase fiscal year 26 appropriations at all. And I'll give you a preview. We don't have a new request in fiscal year 27 related to this either. We're able to take the budgeted amount in professional services and rework our use of some of that to really respect the taxpayers' tax funds and provide the best service to our community. It doesn't require new revenue. It also doesn't commit the council to permanent funding. This would be something that would be discussed during the annual budget process every year. This action does authorize us within our authority to begin that recruiting process, and we may expend some fiscal year, and we do have enough vacancy savings that if we were able to hire and bridge the gap of the county winding down and new people coming on, that would be the optimal solution. Future funding is still subject to annual budget processes and council appropriations. I've also, I believe Lee Griffin is here to answer any other questions. Lee, are you available about the process used, the fiscal impacts? But I'm happy to pass it to Lee.
Thank you, Ms. Dady.
Thank you, Lee Griffin, City Finance Director. I did want to speak to this a bit procedurally to let folks know that we have brought forward these revenue neutral staffing changes to council previously, and we've done that as part of the broader budget amendment process. And if folks may recall, when we bring forward those amendments, we have a couple of sections at the end of the exhibits that outline all of the budget amendments that we bring forward as informational items. And this would be a perfect example of one of those situations where a department has a certain level of appropriations authority and they want to transfer between expenditure categories. And we asked the court to actually write this separate resolution and bring this forward sooner because this was a time-sensitive issue for them, and it didn't need to go through the entire budget amendment process as it does not raise appropriations. So I just wanted to let folks know that we've done that. We usually do it about once a year. I think in fiscal year 26, we had one in April, and in fiscal 25, we had one in April or May as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Just want to make sure there's no other staff presentation. Okay, excellent. So we'll go ahead and bring it back to council questions and see if any council members have any questions. I do believe I see a hand raised. Councillor Anderson.
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. I do have a couple questions. 'Cause I was unclear about a few things and we kind of ran out of time on committee. So thanks for coming and joining us on Monday night. I guess in regards to kind of how the order of operations of how we got here, I understand Lee's comments about, having authority to move within particular line items, the budgeting authority within departments. I guess my concern is that this moves from something that is, contract services to permanent employees and the ongoing, budget line item that those folks will continue to have and therefore be subject to a COLA increase where like contract services aren't necessarily subject to that same thing. So did the court enter into a conversation with the county earlier this year to say that you had intentions of not to bring this in-house and therefore ask for the contract extension? And they said no, and therefore they started to reappropriate or reposition those employees. I guess I'm like, how did the ball get started going to get us to the point where I understand the predicament you're in now? I'm just kind of wanting a tiny bit of background to understand how we got here in terms of like, how did that conversation go with the county and did you guys go ahead and say, we're not going to continue to do this with you guys? And then they made appropriate accommodations for the staff who are currently filling that program. Because I'll let you answer and I'll have follow-up.
Okay. The county budgeting process starts much earlier. And so in looking over the numbers, this was a contract the court originally entered into in 2021. And then there was a year of extension. And in looking at the numbers coming back, we are realizing we don't have cost control over a lot of the other contracts they're entering into for service vendors or technology that we realized we can do this as well with our own people for less money. And so as we began, this has been a really great partnership. So thinking through, are there things they can trim? We're going back and forth. There was a consideration that maybe rent wouldn't be an ongoing thing, that the county would have a free space, and then that didn't materialize. So this was a really hard decision because it has been a successful partnership. But as the contract costs and their COLA, the county COLA was 4% this year, along with union increases, we couldn't control for those costs. And so in terms of sustainability and looking at renegotiating our own contracts for services, it was a decision we came to that we would have more oversight of the program and realize the cost savings.
Great, I appreciate that explanation. And then in your presentation 2 weeks ago, you spoke a lot about kind of the success around text message reminders. And I guess I was confused on whether or not that is something that's currently happening, or is that going to be a new thing that will be happening because of this coming in-house?
That's a great question. That is currently happening through the PASS program. The program they use for that requires a lot of data entry, and it's a lot of passing this information to this person, to this person. So there were a lot of efficiencies we could realize in bringing that in. But the basis of PASS and its efficacy always has been reminders that your dentist, your pediatrician uses, and the Urban Institute just finished and published a study in April looking at the efficacy of that. And when people are on PASS, they're much more likely to appear in court, and we're getting to numbers that are kind of national best standard for that. So it would be continuing that in-house.
Thank you. Absolutely, you bet. Thank you. And Counselor Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, I could share my screen.
Sure.
Conversation. So I showed this last week, or excuse me, week before, when we had the conversation in committee, the municipal court FY26 line item budget. And we had discussed the two line items in particular, and I think there were numerals 350 professional services, and we're looking at transferring that still under FY26, as I understand it, Carrie, to paragraph 110 or line 110. Is that correct?
We have vacancy savings. We wouldn't need to transfer any in fiscal year 26. It's fiscal year 27 and trying to get someone on board early in July. We don't want to hire without coming to the council, and budget final decisions we don't get until mid-August, excuse me.
Okay, follow up.
Yes, please go right ahead.
So looking forward to FY27, we would essentially be eliminating line 350 and just putting that money into line 110 as an additional amount to cover those 3 FTEs. Or are you saying that it would just be absorbing those 3 FTEs into the existing line 110 for salaries and wages plus cost of living, or what you're contractually?
We would move, the proposal is to move $268 from professional services into personnel. In working with finance, there's on our fiscal year 26 budget, a line item for grants and contributions that actually is professional services. It's always been used to pay that. And so that professional services budget is what is in the line item, plus I think it's around $63,000. So it would be shifting $268,000 into personnel. We still use professional services. This is for our sub-judges, our juries. We're looking at updating the hardware and needing some AV expertise. So we would still have an amount in that professional services to those types of expenses.
So you're not expecting, overall, you're not expecting a personal services increase aside from contractually obligated obligations for like COLAs and whatnot based on the merging, as I'm understanding it from you, of professional services and the grants and contributions to make that 268,000 work.
Yes.
And a question for Mr. Bickle, if I may.
Certainly, go right ahead.
Yes, sir. I'm just curious, coming FY27 coming up this summer, are we at a position yet where we're getting any read from Department of Revenue on what might be coming our way, property tax wise, yay, nay?
Dale Bickle, Chief Administrative Officer. What we don't have is any preliminary information related to what our newly taxable values will be. We don't receive those until early August, and that's why the budget adoption is so late in August. We have been reviewing new guidance. So in the last legislature, there were changes to the property tax limitation calculations. And we did receive some preliminary information from Department of Revenue on how to calculate those. We restated the last 3 years of our newly taxable property under this guidance, and in all 3 of those years, we were a little better off. So it's actually the current law is neutral or a little better for us than the previous. That's what I have tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just coming around the corner. So.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Carrie Dady, for being here again tonight. I just had a couple questions, maybe just from an orientation perspective. I think sometimes people don't really know why pretrial supervision is important, and I'm wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about that. We talked kind of about the nuts and bolts of, the positions and whatnot, but can we just have a high overview of why pretrial supervision is important, both as like a community member and as the person who's being supervised?
Yes. So we get citations in our court from Missoula PD. People are innocent until proven guilty. And so there is a space of time when you have a charge filed against you that has not been resolved. It is in the best interest of the entire community, victims, attorneys, the courts, the community at whole, to have these cases move as quickly as possible to resolution. We have witnesses who are able to testify months, not years after. It's good for the entire community. So courts across the country are looking at this rate called failure to appear, because when a defendant, someone accused of a crime, doesn't appear, it just stops the case from moving forward. So that is one metric we really can control. The other metric we're looking for is, in the pendency of that case, no new violations. And so we're really looking at, for pass, is it, you need to go and do this, that. There are conditions of release that keep our community safe, and those are informed by the public safety assessment. And so when crafting that, okay, you're going to be released, but you need to get X, Y, and Z done. We're realizing some of those tasks that might seem really simple for us, going and getting our driver's license renewed, renewing our insurance and getting proof in, there are barriers for other people. So when we come alongside with reminders and then just connection to service providers, we're able to quickly resolve cases as quickly as possible, and keep that number of new charges down to a minimum, which is the goal of every court.
Yeah. Please.
Thank you for that. Just to double check my understanding of things, if we don't have pretrial supervision, the alternative is jail. Is that correct?
If we don't have, this is a pretrial supportive services, the heart being that reminder of, you've got to do this, you've got to fine, you've got to get this done. There are other tools and other models that different courts have chosen to use across the country in terms of evidence-based best practices, which would be the least restrictive, least expensive means to get this behavior. The practice that is being used in Missoula Municipal Court is a nationwide leader. That's why we have studies on it, national speaking invites, because we're really getting to that just right amount to get things moved along.
Great, thank you. I guess I was touching on a little bit of my own personal knowledge, which is that our current jail population, pardon me.
Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jordan.
Our current jail population is largely pretrial folks who have not been accused of a crime and are waiting their day in court. And so I guess what I was getting at as well, and maybe you can confirm this, is if one of the alternatives may be, if they're not in pretrial supervision, they could potentially be waiting their court date in jail, which is, from what I've heard, costing about $200 a day per person. And that's something that all of us in Missoula County pay for. Is that correct?
Right. The current rate for an overnight at jail is $208. The people being held pretrial in jail, for the most part, are on felony holds from district court, where public safety, they have different cases and different considerations.
Thank you. And one final, thank you. That's right.
Sounds good.
And you did touch on this a little bit already in my first question, but I'm just curious if you can really dial in on how these positions will help the criminal legal system as a whole. You know, like you said, we've got city prosecutors who are preparing for somebody to show up in court. We've got potential jurors who are preparing for somebody to show up in court. We have city judges who are doing the same and other associated staff. And I'm just curious, do you see that these positions could potentially create like a tax savings of sorts by preventing all of this preparation of all the professionals who ultimately may not have this person show up in court, but also as a way, I think you touched on this already, to just get cases adjudicated more quickly?
Yeah, I think one of the most challenging things about a city budget is how to calculate that churn. When everybody shows up and everybody's ready and there's one party in a case that isn't ready, and that just ongoing staff work, the prep for both our prosecutors and our public defenders. We've had where jurors come in and we didn't have enough jurors. I mean, just all of these things working together. So something, just a very simple solution of reminders and connecting people with resources. We've seen micro input, a macro output that is good for our community. Yeah.
All right. Councilor McCoy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just was curious about whether we're going to have the ability to track the savings, like if we're going to keep an eye on that we are actually saving some money, and whether or not that is some data we can bring forward. Is that possible for us?
Yeah, and in the Urban Institute, a third party really crunching our numbers for the last 4 years and looking at the classes. There's several tiers of support, whether it's just that basic text message or whether it's light touch case management to connect people directly with a service provider. Stephen Thompson and his team have built a phenomenal network and have a lot of trust with the people we're serving and the great relationships with service providers where we can call someone instantly, and we have that, and we can talk through a challenge. How to calculate the cost of when it doesn't go well, when it doesn't go efficiently, that's more challenging. But for us, really looking at those failure to appear rates, and are we seeing people racking up new charges or citations during the pendency? Those are two pretty standard things that we do measure and we can track.
Great. I'd love to see those numbers in a year.
Yeah, great.
Great, thank you. And I will just point out that Carrie did share the report that she's referencing from the not Urban Land Institute, but the Urban Institute.
The Urban Institute, yeah.
And the work of the municipal court on Friday, May 1st. So if that's not in your inbox, make sure we reach back out to Carrie and she can send that. But she did send that to my office and all of City Council as well. Next question, Councilor Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, just clarification for something that was brought up by one of my colleagues, Ms. Jordan, about pretrial supervision. I'm sure you're aware of a recent federal court case in Valley County that was recently adjudicated on pretrial supervision.
Yes, I did see Judge Christensen on the sideline of soccer games this last weekend.
Okay, so then you're aware that a jury then decided the worst value to pretrial supervision, the fact that the county can charge individuals for things like alcohol monitoring, for GPS bracelets that the county charges these folks. And the case, and I would tell you that the case that was made on behalf of the county was the fact that this was their opportunity to actually get out of jail, to have those services available. Otherwise, without the ability to have monitoring, to have that accountability for drug testing, for GPS monitoring, that it's because of that they would in fact be sitting in jail without those tools.
I did talk with the judge who presided over that case, and that case was interesting. That is a question of law that went to a jury that normally doesn't happen. Usually those types of cases, due process implications are tried to a judge because it is a question of law. And any verdict from a jury is just case by case findings. And so whether to amplify that and make it mean something larger was just the jurors that day and what they found based on the facts presented.
I just wanted to bring that out, Madam Mayor, because obviously that particular jury for this particular case saw value in that system, in a method of accountability, a method for folks to, in fact, get out of jail, to have those tools available, and for fostering public safety in Ravalli County. Thank you.
And I do know that the county's budget for their pretrial supervision, which does include some GPS monitoring, some drug and alcohol testing, is a cost of over $1,800 per person. If the council wanted to appropriate and find a large amount of new funds, and for us to sit down together as a community and say, what are the evidence-based best practices that are moving the needle to keep people safe when they are released during the pendency of the case, we would be open to that conversation, but it's an expensive one.
Okay. Thank you very much for the Q&A, for the additional information. Any last questions from council before we hear a motion and then public comment? Okay, not seeing any additional questions. I will look to Councillor Savage to make the motion, please.
All right, I move that we approve creating 3 new full-time equivalent positions for the municipal court using funds that exist within the professional services line of the budget.
Okay, thank you very much. And with that, is there any public comment on this agenda item? Any public comment on this agenda item? All right, not seeing any in the room. Just want to make sure we give the opportunity for folks that are participating online to see if there's anybody online that wishes to make public comment on this agenda item. Okay, I'm not seeing any online, so that does wrap up our public comment. We'll bring it back to council questions and or comments, and we'll start with Councillor Sherrill, please.
Yeah, thanks. I don't have any questions. I appreciate Carrie's willingness to answer some of my questions in between, because I did have questions about this coming out of the committee. And I also appreciate that we're here and having a full conversation, because we did get a little pressed for time. To me, this is a budget neutral proposal. It is going to avoid a gap in coverage, and it's a program that potentially reduces the time that it reduces the trial time. So to me, it moves cases through the system. And once I understood what was being asked and how the money was going to be used, and the difficulty of having a gap in coverage and what that would potentially mean, to me, it became a no-brainer that I was going to vote yes for this tonight, and that's what I intend on doing.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Sherrill. Councillor Nugent?
Thank you, Mayor Davis. I appreciate, departments coming up with new ways to be efficient. And if the municipal court feels like they can do this better in-house, I have no problem supporting that. I think the conversation's been interesting both right now, and then I was able to watch the committee, but I wasn't able to be there, so apologies for that. And I think that a lot of the questions about the success rates in the pretrial supervision are interesting, and ultimately it comes down to the municipal court now owns this, and the decision's been made by those 3 judges elected by the city residents to bring this in-house, and if something's not working, ultimately it's up to the judges, and I appreciate their willingness to look at something differently. And I don't actually think we will see much of a difference between the ultimate outcome, because I don't think the average citizen really understands what this even is unless they're involved in the court system. So, if some of the questions that have been raised do, show some sort of issue, I anticipate that the court will be happy to answer questions on that. And, I think also it's worth noting, and I don't think that it was misconstrued in here at all, but the city isn't paying for nights in jail, it's the broader taxpayer. And I think Councilor Jordan explained that when she said that it's us all as county residents, because that's absolutely true. It's just coming from the county budget, not the city budget. So if anyone's listening along, that's the nuance there. But if you're a resident of the county of Missoula, you are paying for that. So
Thank you very much for your comments, Councilor Nugent. Councilor Campbell.
And thank you, Madam Mayor. So I guess in light of the conversation I heard tonight, my understanding of line items are going to be shifted to personal services. I guess I personally feel satisfied that this is a budget neutral type item for them at this point anyway. I had concern, it just seemed to me, talk about in committee that the math didn't quite add up for the 268,000 they were asking for in the numbers I was seeing here. But I think through Q&A we had tonight, I got some clarity on that. So being that the case from a fiscal standpoint, it would appear to make sense. So I will be in support of this, but I'll, with my understanding in hand, point forward, and I'll be watching come fiscal year 27, I would suspect, that line item 350 and line item 700 will cease to exist. If they're still there, then that's a conversation had at that point in time. So, meantime, I'll be in support.
Thank you, Councilor Campbell. And Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. I just think this is really exciting. Conversations have been ongoing since at least 2019 about bringing pretrial services in-house from Missoula Correctional Services for a variety of reasons. And I think it's really exciting to see that municipal court is going to be directly involved in providing those services. I think that something that often gets forgotten is that sometimes we just can't fine and fee and jail people out of certain types of things related to supportive services. And so in essence, by providing these additional services, we're going to be able to get people out of the criminal legal system anyway, while still providing safety for our community and making sure that the unintended consequences of the criminal legal system don't keep people in the criminal legal system. So I think this is just really exciting. It's in line with best practices and tons of peer-reviewed published research about how to keep a community safe, cut costs, and ensure people get through the criminal legal system quickly. So this is super cool. Happy to support this, and very creative budgeting. Well done.
All right. Thank you for your comments, Councilor Jordan. And that looks like it wraps up council comments. So we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote for this agenda item, please.
All right, voting on the resolution to approve creating 3 new full-time equivalent positions for the municipal court using funds that exist within the professional services line of the budget, beginning with Campbell.
Yes.
Trask.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
McCoy.
Aye.
Melson.
Yes.
Nugent.
yes.
Ponton.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes, sorry. Yes, thank you.
Anderson votes yes. And Becerra.
Yes.
And that item also passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you all very much. Carrie, thanks for coming down and providing the presentation. And Stephen, thanks for coming in and joining in for your work. Hope you both have a nice evening. Thank you. All right, that wraps up our regular business. Any items under our committee reports? We'll next move on to agenda item number 11, which is the second installment of public comment for items not on the agenda. So if there is anybody that has not had a chance to provide public comment this evening and wishes to do that now, you're welcome to come up to the podium. Please share your name for the record, and I'll keep time for 3 minutes up here now. Anybody for public comment for items that are not on the agenda?
Good evening. My name's Kathy Scribner. I live in Missoula. I've been a resident here for just about 20 years. I'm commenting in response to the Midtown Commons project and proposed park that is going in our area of town. I live on Harv Avenue. I've lived there quite a while. And I'm just going to read what I wrote because I think it's easier. Concerning the Grove, which is a natural area and the only actual natural area on our part of town, in our part of town. I think some of my fellow folks in our little group spoke earlier. So I'm just going to start. It's always interesting how stories are told, depending on the perspectives of the teller and the listener. Recently, the Missoula Current ran a story with the headline, quote, "With up to 250 housing units, Midtown Commons wins city support." City referring to whom exactly? You guys, city council, private citizens, businesses, taxpayers, all of us. Because for those of us who live in the vicinity of the 13-acre proposed development adjacent to Southgate Mall, otherwise known, and it is on the books as the blighted end of town, we don't necessarily consider this huge development a big win. Far from it. We are in fact bracing for the onslaught of more traffic and the dangers that come with it: pavement, noise, light trash, increased heat in the already hottest part of town, and perhaps the most heartbreaking of all, the proposed destruction of the only little bit of natural habitat we have left. It's a small public easement that comprises greenway, established shade trees, and a wildlife corridor. And it's a beloved oasis and source of respite for both locals and visitors alike, and we call it the Grove. Due to the current housing crisis, we all understand the need for more housing in Missoula. I especially understand that working in the housing community, especially affordable housing. But what some of us residents don't understand is the pushback, why maybe the city isn't listening more pointedly to our concerns regarding the ecology of our little natural habitat, that we're not being taken seriously in the most underserved, overpaved neighborhoods where our homes are already squashed between commercial businesses and the massive traffic on Reserve Street and Highway 93. So what we're being told is that we need a cookie cutter park, another park that's in the hottest area of Missoula, where there will be no shade except for a pavilion, merely 15 feet adjacent to a lineage of mature cottonwood trees. Oops, is that too long?
That's 3 minutes. But you're welcome to submit your comments.
If
Go
I
ahead
can
and wrap
just
up.
summarize real quickly, what I'm thinking here, guys, is we have a really unique opportunity to create an interpretive park that incorporates both natural habitat that's beautiful, it's there, as well as open park space. Perhaps there's a bridge we can put over it, because as we all know, kids need to play outside in natural habitat. They build forts there already. It's also become,
Thank you, Kathy. I'm going to go ahead and wrap you up there.
All right. I'm
Go ahead
just
and wrap
also
up your
saying,
sentence.
as a chaplain, I'm just appealing to you. It's a sacred place. It has become that. And I will just say, sacred places are not born of random events, but they're intentional moments shared between individuals and place. That's a sacred place. I please encourage you to, I'm going to send this online, but just encourage you to come check it out.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming down to share your comments. Anybody else that hasn't had a chance to share public comment this evening that are items that are not on the agenda? Okay. Quickly look online to see if we have anybody there that wishes to make public comment for items that are not on the agenda. All right. Not seeing any. That does wrap up our public comment for items not on the agenda. I'll move on to communications from the mayor and have an exciting update about our Rivara project. And I sure wish that some of the folks that come down and make public comment at the beginning of our meeting would stick around for comments from the mayor and council so they could hear updates on some of these things. But it's understandable. People have busy lives, and so it's just a function of the way that our schedule is set for city council meetings. So I'll mention again that the Midtown Commons will be in its public approval process, and there is a land use and planning committee this Wednesday. You heard it at the beginning of the meeting. It is at it is at our land use and planning committee, 12:45 to 2:45. Gosh, I hope you can make that committee. One of the things that, and especially hearing some public comment that was just made, our director of Parks and Recreation will be there to talk about not only the natural pollinator gardens, but also the way in which the biomimicry has influenced and informed the part of the site design. So it's what's considered a hybrid park. This is a description that's in our PROST plan, and it is something that is an element of the complete park that has been also identified in our PROST plan, which is when a park meets all elements of social, cultural, physical, and natural elements. Real happy that we've been able to increase the size of the park there to larger than a football field, which is really awesome for that size of development. And it is different than what's there today, most certainly, but it is certainly no afterthought. In fact, an incredible amount of thought and professional skill and public input went into that park. The other thing I'll mention, and unfortunately those public commenters did have to leave this evening, but if folks go back and watch the Missoula Redevelopment Agency presentation or come to the Land Use and Planning Committee on Wednesday, you'll hear the staff presentation in which attainable housing, and I think people get confused between what's affordable. And I can tell you, after a career in affordable housing, it is confusing. Are we talking about deed restricted affordable housing, like the City Council funded this evening with home, CDBG, and Affordable Housing Trust Fund dollars? Or are we talking about encouraging lowercase affordable housing, in which case is not necessarily deed restricted, but is attainable to the workforce? Something that was said during that meeting, and I just want to make sure nobody leaves confused tonight, is that this housing is absolutely intended for the workforce. What was said at that meeting is that workforce housing program through the Missoula Redevelopment Agency won't be used to subsidize the housing units. I just want to make sure I say that tonight. I will say that again at our Land Use and Planning Committee, and again at the 18th when we're back in front of City Council for final approval. But it is a really important note to make because it certainly is for our workforce. And we're really proud of that fact. We're proud of the fact that we're able to find a private developer to be able to create a diverse set of housing types that meet a whole host of things, including elevator serviced buildings that folks that need accessible and adaptable apartments will be able to access. On the housing note, real happy today to be able to travel to Helena to provide testimony for Franklin Crossing. Midtown Commons, in fact, will be able to support additional increment in the Urban Renewal District 3 to be able to achieve one of the largest affordable housing, capital A affordable housing projects in Missoula's history. And certainly as far as city's participation. This is 193 deed-restricted affordable homes financed through the Housing Tax Credit Program. It's a very competitive process. It was phase one today. Council President Nugent and I traveled over with Grant Keir from Missoula Economic Partnership. We were joined by Melanie Brock and others who were in Helena as well to support this project. And that is something that is very exciting, and we're fingers crossed, but I will tell you there was quite a bit of enthusiasm from that board. They'll make a vote tomorrow on whether that project moves forward to the next level, which is actually getting invited to apply. And then after that, there's additional approvals and a final approval of that project in October, should we be so lucky. And then the last thing I'll mention, and I hope people tell their friends, and gosh, again, I'm sorry that some of our public commenters that talk about the benefit of community land trusts aren't here, because our partnership with Front Step, which is formerly known as the North Missoula Community Land Trust, they have been rolling out and doing public outreach for the Scott Street Rivara housing development, and now are taking applications with a due date of May 22nd for the affordable homeownership opportunities and the permanently attainable homes through this community land trust model. If you or if you yourself or somebody you know is interested in this opportunity for a studio, a one-bedroom, or a two-bedroom, prices range between $176,000 and $287,000. These income-qualified homes are available to buyers earning up to 120% of the area median income. Please just go to, and that's about approximately $94,000 for a household of two. So if you wish to see additional information, you can go to Scott Street Rivara on the city's website or go right to Front Step. And there's an application there. Again, those applications are due by May 22nd. I hope folks take advantage of this. I will also say that thank you to the City Council and to the city for substantial investment in those community land trust homes. That is available through the Workforce Housing Program of Missoula Redevelopment Agency to the tune of $3 million to make that possible. And I'm very excited to see what will happen for these home buyers once they move in. And so with that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to the council for your comments this evening. And I'll start with you, Vice President Savage.
Thank you very much. No, all I will say is that I'm just still so impressed with that Rivera project and super excited about it. I was hiking up in the North Hills this weekend and looking down, seeing all of those things sort of rise up. It's just been, it's been a really great thing to see. That's all I really have to say.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Councilor Ponton.
Thanks, Mayor Davis. I will pass tonight. Thank you.
You bet. Councilor Kresk.
Thanks, I'll also pass.
All right. Councilor Melson?
As will I. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Jordan?
Pass, thank you.
You bet. Councilor McCoy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to take just a brief second to express my appreciation for our colleague, Mr. Campbell, this evening. I feel like we got an opportunity to see Councilor Campbell pose some tough questions, push back, as well as transition and change his position compared to Wednesday. And to me, that is a significant act of leadership, being able to shift, being able to learn and make that determination in the moment. And I just wanted to, extend an appreciation to you, Bob. And I always appreciate the way you attack details, the way you bring up the budget. But I also think it speaks very loudly in a time when people are burrowing in to agendas based on ideology, to see somebody push back against something, learn, see the facts, and transition. So thanks.
Well, thank you for holding that gracious space, Councilor McCoy. And Councilor Anderson.
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. Just quickly, I'm going to say congratulations to all of the graduates. 'Tis the season, so I attended MSU's graduation last weekend. Exciting times for many thousands of people across. I know, totally, yes, go Grizz, absolutely. Blue, maroon, and silver. But yes, did get dragged down to MSU. But congratulations to all the graduates. But yeah, thanks so much, Madam Mayor, for bringing up the Rivara project, because I think that I have had the opportunity of being on council for a little while now, and literally have seen that project go through from just initial concept, trying to make sure that we get the last bits of it cleaned up, to now being able to think about people actually purchasing homes and starting there and continuing their lives there, and how there's constant push and pull of the immediacy of the now and how long things take, but they do happen, and change is coming, and it's just really exciting to think that once was a mill site, and all the extra attention that was put into there to make sure that it was cleaned up beyond what the initial EPA standards were going to be, in hopes that someday people could call that area home. And now those applications are due for those people that kind of once were just sort of kind of a random thought of in the future. So there are no easy solutions, because if there were, we would have done them by now. But thoughtful planning and working together and working with creative developers like those at Rivara do actually move the needle, and slowly but surely. So appreciate you highlighting that, and I'm really excited to see some of those folks moving in and calling those places home. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Campbell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, thank you, Councillor McCoy, for those comments. And, doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes, you look at totality of a circumstance and just oppose against your personal philosophy, and from time to time, it's keeping an open mind on things and arriving at a decision, a logical decision that may not be fully in line with your thoughts and feelings on things, but you see a opportunity for greater good. So tonight was such an opportunity, so appreciate that. A couple other comments, just really quick. First of all, I would like to recognize it is almost the end of National. Thompson, I think she left, but National Nurses Week ends tomorrow. I bring that up, just shout out to my stepdaughter, Christina, the RN up in Whitefish, practicing, and also my son, Justin, who's a CCRN in the Army in Kuwait as we speak right now, serving and doing his job admirably over there. And so just a shout out to those two and to nurses, general, wherever you are, thank you for what it is you all do. Then secondly, it's also the beginning of National Police Week here in May, and we honor our fallen officers across the United States. And it culminates this Friday with the memorial service, if you're able to attend, at Rose Park, 6 p.m. For our annual law enforcement memorial service to honor the fallen officers here in Missoula County over the years. So if you get an opportunity to go out there, they always have a good speaker and give due honor to those that have fallen in the line of duty here in Missoula County. Thank you.
Thank you very much for making that announcement. Appreciate that. Thank you, Councillor Campbell. And
Yeah,
Councillor Sherrill.
I'm going to pass, but I wanted to just say I appreciate your comments earlier.
Thank you. Councillor Nugent.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just echo a little bit of what you said. Being in Helena to help kind of advocate for the Franklin Crossing project at the Montana Board of Housing was an experience, and it's always interesting to be there. And I don't need to tell you this because you've worked in this world for well, I guess somebody on the board said millions of years,
yeah.
but a long time is what I'll say. But I was struck because the project that Franklin Crossing has that the city's been working on, but also there was another project from Missoula that Homeward and the YWCA, have been working on and are applying for the higher threshold of housing tax credits. Were both projects that group a lot of kind of partners together to try and solve community issues. And the support that particularly Franklin Crossing had from not only the group putting it together, the Housing Authority, and so on, but also myself and the mayor were there, MEP, Midtown. It struck me that, there are good things happening in Missoula. And I remember, years ago when you and I were sitting here during our campaigns and we had the mayoral debate, and we were kind of jokingly going back and forth about which project was at the time one of the largest low-income housing tax credits in Montana's history, the Trinity project from Homeward or the Villaggio project that came through the Housing Authority. And then since then, the city has been part of Rivara, which is the largest community land trust project in the state's history that at least publicly funded one that we can think of. And Franklin's Crossing will be another one that's right up there on that threshold. So that's all in the last decade. And it struck me at the Housing Board that most of the other communities in Montana would love to have the, I guess, problems of having so many people in the community trying to help solve and work together and build partnerships. And what sometimes I think is miscast as negative from public commenters who may be well-intentioned but don't completely understand some of the way that these projects come together are sources of great jealousy from other parts of the state, because there are so many partners willing to work together to help solve problems. And I think that Missoula should be proud of that. And we should continue to try and put the right people together to meet kind of the issues where they're at. a lot of the comments that we've heard lately have talked about market rate, like it's not affordable. And I think that it's kind of missing the bigger picture. There's two types of housing problems that we're trying to look at the same time. There's people who need deeply affordable income restricted housing. And then there's people who make too much to qualify for income restricted housing, but still can't necessarily afford median priced homes. And so when people say market rate, I think there's a tendency to think it's $1 million homes, when the reality is, median literally means middle. And so there's homes priced above the median, and then there's homes priced below the median. And everything that we've heard about the Midtown Commons project is that developer is aiming to create a lot of for purchase home ownership opportunities below the median price point. And that is a niche that needs it. And we've heard a lot of people talk about nurses and police officers and firefighters. And a constituent sent me that the starting salary at MCPS is $50,000, so more than what was said in public comment tonight. But I'm sure that if you maybe look at the data more broadly, it might be there. But the point is that we cannot forget about those folks who are struggling to afford houses in Missoula, but aren't going to qualify for subsidized housing. And that is part of what we are tasked to solve. That's part of what the state legislature has asked for us to solve. And that's why when you look at what we have going on in Missoula right now, the Midtown project is one of many. And you've got to look at it with Midtown, with Franklin Crossing, with Rivara, and that, the city has tried to do that, kind of meet everybody where they're at, and try and create opportunities for all sorts of people. And, we'll obviously go into this a lot more in committee this week and then at council on Monday. But I just think it's important for people to maybe recognize that, that term missing middle that gets thrown around is the type of housing that we're looking at this Midtown project. And it is really aimed at that group that is making too much to qualify for subsidies, but still can't afford to live in Missoula. And that's a real group. And, a lot of the public comment kind of implies that the only way to reach that group is to make it capital A affordable or income restricted, but that group won't qualify. So it's this kind of huge question of how do we solve that? And I think I look forward to the conversations this week, and I'm always happy to discuss this more, but I am going to make sure and kind of correct the record on some of these conversations. And I wish that some of the people that engage with us could be here and hear some of that. But hopefully on Wednesday we get that chance. And with that, I'll wrap it up because I know I've gone longer than some of my colleagues would want me to already. So
Appreciate your reflections. Thank you very much, Counselor. All right. And Counselor Becerra, just checking in, see if you have any comments this evening.
I will pass. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. All right. Well, with that does wrap up our general comments from City Council members. I will adjourn the meeting this evening at 8:08 p.m. Thank you very much. Thanks for the public coming down tonight. And thank you all, Council. Barf.